Lying. Everybody does it. Some people are good liars and some are bad. But how do we know if someone's actually telling the truth? From medieval torture to modern innovations, mankind has been finding ways to catch a lie. The polygraph was invented by John Larson in 1921. John Augustus Larson was born on December 11th in 1893 in Nova Scotia. Being a part of a poor family, he worked hard his entire life and managed to get into the University of California, where he studied and completed his PhD in physiology. Later, he used his knowledge and understanding of reactions in the human body and how the brain responds to stress to invent a machine that could decipher when a person was lying and when it was telling the truth. Between 1920 and 1921, prohibition was put into action. Not soon after, the sewers were filled with speakeasies, and large quantities of alcohol were smuggled in from Canada. It caused the crime rate to go on the rise. The polygraph was used by the police to catch people smuggling and selling alcohol illegally. But Larson wasn't the first to attempt the polygraph. Others like Cesar Lombroso, Vittorio Benussi, and William Marston built parts of it, such as measuring blood pressure, breathing, and galvanic skin responses. To learn more about how the polygraph works and why it works, I met with Mr. Daniel Ribicoff, CEO of the International Investigative Group, a private investigator that specializes in polygraph examinations.
Been around for over 100 years. Polygraph started out in the early 1900s with the paper and the pen instruments. Today they're all computerized. So 100 years ago, we really didn't know how the polygraph worked. We just knew that when you lied, you had a certain reaction. With 100 years of technological advancements as well as advancements in how the human brain works, today we know how the polygraph works and why it works. And I actually have a chart here for you. Okay. So the chart is basically an MRI, so it can show the brain working real time. So if you look at the chart, it shows when a person tells the truth, they activate the blue part of their brain. When a person lies, they activate the red part of their brain. When you activate the blue part of your brain, you're activating your memory. So if I ask you, Daisy, did you rob the bank yesterday? You automatically look into your memory because your brain does 100 trillion calculations per second.
Wow.
Yeah, trillion with a T, not a B, okay? You look into your brain and you go, nope, didn't rob the bank, and you answer from your memory.
What does the polygraph monitor?
Ah, good question. The polygraph essentially tells me what part of your brain you're utilizing, but it does it down your spine. What happens is, you're familiar with acupuncture?
Yep.
So if you go to the acupuncturist and you say, oh, I have a headache, he might stick a pin in your toe. And you go, wait a second, I have a headache, why are you putting a pin in my toe? Because the nerves are connected through your spine. So your brain is going to activate your heart, which is going to activate your lungs, which is going to activate your sweat glands. You have 2 million tubes in your body that are sweat glands.
Wow.
That will fill and retract all day long with sweat. And what we're looking for is your heartbeat and your blood pressure, your breathing at 2 levels, upper chest and around the abdomen, as well as your sweat gland activity. So that's what we monitor. We monitor basically 4 channels in a polygraph.
How accurate is the polygraph?
The polygraph today, with 100 years of technological advancement, 100 years of experimentation, what works, what doesn't work, what works better than other things, today has been rated in studies as 98% accurate.
Have you seen any changes in a polygraph since you've been a private investigator?
Sure, I've seen the advent of computerized polygraphs coming into play versus the old mechanical or analog instruments with the papers that rolled and the pens that would, record like you typically see in the movies. We've seen the advent of new experimentation and procedures and modifications on what to do, what not to do, and we're constantly reviewing that, and things are always getting upgraded. And we've also seen the advent of computerized scoring, where before it was opinion-based. In other words, I look at a chart and I go, well, I think you're lying. And another polygraph examiner looks and says, well, I think she's telling the truth. Today we have scoring programs that are known as scoring algorithms that will do the mathematical calculations of the charts and turn it into a statistical probability of whether you're being deceptive or honest, down to 0.1%.
Is there any way to cheat a polygraph test?
There's several ways that people try to employ what we call countermeasures. And countermeasures is something that you try to do to cheat the polygraph. Common one is they try to take drugs. If you try to take a drug that's a tranquilizer, something that's going to make you less reactive, that's one way. However, nervous system, and that is an instant fail, because there's only one reason to try to cheat a polygraph. They're lying.
Yeah.
People will also try to do things with their body that they read on the internet. Take deep breaths. They might want to press their feet down against the floor or bite the inside of their lip. The only problem with that is, unless you're very trained at it, when to do it and how to do it, it's extremely obvious to the polygraph examiner. So that is another countermeasure that we would fail you for instantly. And it's just very difficult, unless you've been trained in the military, to defeat a polygraph. Because what I test, you can't control. I test your brain. You can't control your brain.
From the courtroom to the battlefield, the polygraph today has become as much a part of fighting terror as fighting crime.
It's a portable lie detector, small enough to fit in a soldier's pocket. The Pentagon calls it PCAS. The U.S. Army will issue the first 90 devices to troops this month, first in Afghanistan and later in Iraq. It will be used to narrow down the list of suspects after an IED explosion, or to help decide who can work as an interpreter on a U.S. military base.
And you want to make sure that you don't have anybody that's a member of the Taliban. So you might ask someone, are you a member of the Taliban? Have you helped the Taliban in any way? In order to conduct the test on you, I'm going to put some components on you. I'm going to put this little device here on your fingertip, and that's going to allow us to record your cardiovascular activity. Next, I'm going to put these two metal plates on you, and that's going to allow me to record basically activity in your sweat glands. Once I've collected enough signals with the questions, it'll then tell me whether you're being truthful or not.
An interpreter asks yes or no questions in Arabic. He punches in the answers on a handheld computer or personal digital assistant. The computer thinks for a couple of minutes, revealing green if it thinks the person is telling the truth, red if it decides the person is being deceptive, and yellow if it can't decide.
Thanks to the polygraph, criminals like murderers, robbers, abusers, and terrorists have been found guilty and put behind bars. The polygraph was, and still is, one of the most famous law enforcement devices of all time because of its amazing accuracy.